We've got our panelists on right now, as well as Nikisha from Conservation Ontario. She's going to be helping with the behind the scenes here. Welcome everyone. As you start joining, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box in Zoom. Let us know who you are and what organization you're from. Okay, Nikisha, just so you know, if I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the chat. Okay, let's see the attendees. Oh, but I can now see some of those that have joined us. I can see Barbara, Mackenzie, Winya, and Brenda, and Brianna, and Kathy Grant. Hi, Kathy. I know you from Cloca. And who else do we see here? Chris. Chris, hi, how are you? I've got Dan Schneider is here. Welcome, Dan. And Daniela and Emily. Who else? Got tons of people joining now. It's happening too fast for me to keep up with. We've got somebody named M, Mysterious M. A couple of Nancys. Pat Donnelly, hello, Pat. And Nancy, and who else? Hi, Sam. And Stana and Sharon are here. Let's see. Taylor and Stephanie and Yvonne are here. Fabulous. It's good to see so many people joining us for our first ever webinar. If you haven't had a chance to see the chat, take a look. Right now, I'm not in it myself, but I'm Karen. I'm going to be your moderator today. And please feel free to introduce yourself. Let us know where you're from. And in a moment, we'll get a few things started and taken care of. Get a few more people to join the call. All right, I've worked through my end and I can see the chat now. Fabulous. Okay, here we go. Let's see what's happening in the chat. Yes, Kathy from Cloca and Stana. Paula from North Bay. Yay! We have some northern representation. Wonderful. And who else? Vicky from Grey Sauble. And Yvonne from Cloca too. Wow. Oh, Katie from Lake Simcoe. I remember meeting you at Rekindle a few years ago. Hello. Yeah. Yay. Yeah, Dan, I see your question. You can share who you're associated with, which CA, to everybody. Not a problem. Hi, Lisa from TRCA. Yes, Lisa and I, we used to work together a long, long time ago. So it's good to see you in the chat. And welcome. Nina's here. Welcome. Hi, Dan, again. Hi, Sharon. Welcome, everyone. Okay, well, let's check the time. We've got a few folks who might still be joining us, but it's about just after 2:30. And because we've got 5 panelists, we will get things started. So I'm just going to minimize my chat. I won't be monitoring that just yet. Our friends who are on the panel are here. You should be able to see 5 of them. And then Nikisha, she's hiding behind the scenes, going to help with some of the Q&A and the moderating of the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to direct them at Nikisha or myself throughout the webinar today. So as you might have captured, my name's Karen, and I'm representing Rekindle the Sparks and the Watershed Interpreters Network, but I also work at Credit Valley Conservation as a senior coordinator, and today I'm coming to you live from Guelph, Ontario. As we work towards reconciliation with Indigenous people, we begin our webinar today by respectfully acknowledging that we are situated on traditional territories and treaty lands, in particular, those of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And we are also on the lands of the Anishinaabe of the Williams First Treaty Nations, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis Nation. And as shared stewards of Ontario's land and water resources, along with these First Nation communities, Conservation Ontario and conservation authorities appreciate and respect the history and diversity of the land and its people, and are grateful to have this opportunity to meet in this territory today. And today I'd like to welcome you to WIN's first ever webinar. WIN, or Watershed Interpreters Network, is a group of educators and interpreters working at conservation authorities in Ontario. And technically, you are already part of this network for free. And if you're joining us from another organization, welcome. As you may know, a small group of us plan and engage one another typically at the annual Rekindle the Sparks Educators Workshop, which is held annually in November. And this year, we're taking Rekindle online, starting with today's webinar. So stay tuned for more information about the larger Rekindle event that will be taking place in November over the course of that week. Also new this year is a Facebook group dedicated to enhancing our networking connection. So if you haven't had a chance to join on Facebook, join us and look for us. We'd love to have you on that WIN group. And today we have 5 panelists that will share their experiences, opportunities, challenges, and achievements pivoting to meet the needs of our everyday changing and ever-changing educational and watershed communities during this pandemic. During their presentations, please feel free to use the Q&A function in Zoom, and we will do our best to answer those questions there throughout the webinar. And any that aren't addressed, we will have a chance at the very end to address those, and you'll continue to ask questions throughout that Q&A. Nikisha and I, as I mentioned, will be monitoring that. And if you need any help, technical help, for whatever reason, you can also email me at my CVC email address, and I'll try to check in on those throughout the webinar as well. So if there's no other questions or comments in the chat, I'm just going to check here to make sure that we are ready to go. And I would like to introduce our first speaker, Nicole Hamley. She is from Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. I just need to switch some screens here. And today, Nicole will describe new revenue opportunities created over the summer, including online teacher PD courses and DIY hike opportunities at a conservation area, and she will also describe how a new Facebook initiative has attracted more than 1,000 followers. So welcome, Nicole.
Great, thank you. So first thing we're going to try and do here is successfully screen share. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Karen, can you just give me the okay that you guys are seeing that?
Yep, I can see your screen. Great, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so we will get started. Thanks very much. So as Karen mentioned, I'm with Lake Simcoe Region Conservation. We're gonna dive right in here. The first bullet's kind of redundant. We're all painfully aware that March 17th was the day that really changed the landscape for us in education. So up in our watershed jurisdiction, that was the date that canceled all planned education programs and services. So luckily, within 2 weeks and with tremendous support from our corporate communications team, we moved our platform entirely online. So I'm going to address just briefly a suite of online learning web pages, our Facebook group, some educator PD, and our do-it-yourself hype series. So we ended up launching a series of online learning web pages. I'm not going to spend much time here because the presentation, which will be circulated, has the hyperlinks and you can go and check it out. But it's just, I wanted to point out it was structured by audience. So you can see there some examples of catering to families, independent learners, and homeschoolers who are following closely with the provincial curriculum. We started to dive in once we had the kind of the skeleton structure set up. We had some staff, one of which is on the call, Katie Biddy. I have to give her a shout out. She developed some wonderful resource packages related to nature literacy, nature math. And the team also put together a series of neighborhood naturalist videos. So these are videos that were shot from 4, 5, 6 different geographic locations as we were all in our backyards and our neighborhoods. 11 episodes in total, different topics, and the staff actually also wrote a theme song. So once the presentation circulated, I would encourage you to click the link and check them out if you haven't seen them. I want to also address what Keren mentioned, and that was the Facebook group that we established. So it's called Outdoor Learning with SCRCA. Originally, our goal was to, between the beginning of April and the end of June, a target of 300 members. We thought this would be a nice way to share resources, a little bit different from online web pages because this would allow for two-way engagement, right? Where our audience members could ask us questions, post their own resources, and that sort of thing. So we created a series of hashtags and the team was pumping out content. So we had posts going up 6 days a week under a variety of hashtags that you can see on the screen there, sharing videos, activity sheets, resource links to third-party type stuff, really trying to drive engagement. So like saying, here's an activity, tell us how it worked with your student or how it worked with your family. We did a survey as well to get some feedback from our audience members. So some of that feedback started to indicate that teachers who were trying to take their own classrooms online didn't have time to sort through posting the variety of resources that we had to share. So in the end, we ended up creating a suite of interactive Google Slides, and this allowed us to consolidate all resources into one-stop shopping. So this is an example of our nature math slide. We took the time to turn our education staff into Bitmojis. So that's Dana Eldon on the screen there, our outreach coordinator in her corporate wear. But all of the graphics on this slide are interactive. So you could click them and they would link off to a variety of activities that suited a specific grade range, all related to math in the outdoors. And that was a really helpful way. Teachers could just take this thing, put it right into their Google Classrooms, and it was ready to go. It was also made customizable, so a teacher could take out the Bitmoji and put in their own if they chose to do so. So we, as I say, from about beginning of April to end of June, we just kept putting more and more out into the Facebook group. And by the end of June, we had achieved membership of just actually over 1,000 people. So it was pretty fantastic to have surpassed our targets like that. We had people from outside of our watershed jurisdiction, outside of Ontario, across Canada, and we began to see an international following. Places like South Africa, Portugal, Australia, Malaysia. It was really amazing to see where people were coming from. As we got towards the end of June, we started to transition into some of our summer initiatives, acknowledging that were we going to continue to be successful, we had to bring in some revenue. So the first thing that we did is we launched a webinar series it was called Introduction to Outdoor Learning. So this was geared towards all educators. It was left very generic. So you could be a K-12 educator, homeschooler. You could be a parent who's responsible now for your helping your child out with education. We ran 2 sessions, same sessions, one in July, one in August. Each one included 4 one-hour webinars, as well as access to digital resources to help to build capacity and build a professional learning community. So in the end, we had a total of 45 participants over the 2 sessions, which exceeded our targets. And we were able to bring in a little bit of extra revenue through the sale of our teacher resource kits. The second thing that we did over the summer was launch what was called the DIY Hike series. So this was very simple. It was geared towards families, couples, groups of friends, where they could pay a small fee, get access to some digital resources, and then lead their own experience up at Scanlon Creek. So we did it through 2 topics, Magic of the Forest and Trailblazers. Unfortunately, our registration was a little bit below target. We only had 13 families, but it was good. We learned a lot through the process. So overall, what purpose did all of these initiatives serve? you can see on the bulleted list there, it really first and foremost helped to assure our watershed residents and community partners that we were still here to support nature connection, even though we were working from home. Helped to broaden our reach, helped to strengthen our reputation, just develop our skill sets, provide some opportunities for collaboration, bring in some revenue, as I say, and then set us up for success moving forward. So I'm going to end here on this slide. As we all know, it's been crazy, challenging 2020, but thankfully, I think through the work that we were able to achieve through April until the end of the summer, it's really set us up for success this fall with our education partners. And that is my short and sweet presentation.
Fabulous. Thank you, Nicole. That's awesome. It sounds like you guys have been really busy and taking advantage of some of the opportunities that such a bizarre time has been challenging everybody with. So I really appreciate your time there. Folks who are joining us as participants and attendees, don't be shy. If you've got any questions for Nicole, feel free to add them to the chat. It'll just be easier for us in that way to capture all the questions. And we'll get back to asking you questions in just a few moments, Nicole. We're going to pass it off now to Shauna. Shauna is with Conservation Halton, and she's going to outline what they call their bubble program. And these are programs designed for kids or groups of kids who are in the same bubble or their family and small group of friends. This approach has allowed Conservation Halton to offer fee-based and in-person programs, which are expanding in their subject area into this fall season. Shauna will also discuss Conservation Halton's innovative interactive virtual tour. So welcome, Shauna.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'm just going to share. Okay. All right, I think that's on. Everybody can see the title page, I hope.
Yep, you're good to go.
Excellent, thank you. I am a senior program instructor at Crawford Lake and Mountsburg Conservation Areas. So at Conservation Halton, we started the bubble type programs due to the Ways of the Woods program, the camp that they have at Kelso Conservation Area. We ended up having to, or the staff at Kelso ended up having to rejig it and made Camp Kelso, which took Ways of the Woods place temporarily, and they did a really great job over there. Finding we also had to adapt our program to accommodate smaller groups. Education manager Brenna Bartley discussed with the staff at both Mountsburg and Crawford Lake about creating our own private group tours. So we're offering 4 at Crawford Lake and Mountsburg. So one at Crawford Lake is the Lake to Longhouse program. With this program, we give a private tour of the longhouses. This group actually gets to try their hand at fire starting with flint and steel, and then we make our way down to the lake. The 3 programs offered at Mountsburg, Slither and Crawl, uses sweep nets and dip nets to find and observe the various insects and creatures within the different areas that we're working in. Visitors will also see one of our snakes that we have living at Mountsburg. Talons and Tail Feathers is a program where visitors get a private experience in the flyway with several birds of prey. The Farmyard Fun guests get an in-depth look at a few of the farm animals that we have living here at Mountsburg. All 3 Mountsburg programs have interactions with animals, but to ensure their safety and ours, we don't allow touching of the animals. Masks we require for indoor spaces and when social distancing is difficult. All tools that we use during programs, so the sweep nets, the dip nets, the flint and steel, we all clean those after we handle them. We've had over 3 dozen programs booked since we launched less than a month ago, and when we started, only Lake to Longhouse and Slither and Crawl were offered. Talons and Tail Feathers and Farmyard Fun, I think we started about a week ago, and we've had at least a dozen just from the last week. We are also developing more programs for the winter and spring seasons to incorporate local birds and such. So as far as the the school programming is concerned, we have switched gears and started to develop virtual programs. We have 10 so far. They're going to be as interactive as we can make them, and they last for about 40 minutes, or it's the length of an elementary school period. They cover a range of subjects and grades. The one that I'm working on is the Crawford Lake and Longhouse Village virtual tour. We keep with the grade 4 social studies unit, and we discuss the various requirements for living in this area of Canada in the 1400s, as well as giving information about the reconstructed First Nations village on our site and its connection to the lake. The program is designed to allow for question and answer and discussion type interaction, just like what kids would get when they're in the park. We'll cover about a third the material we would normally cover, but being realistic that we really can't cover 600 years of First Nations history in 40 minutes. The slide itself, the PowerPoint presentation, is only 8 slides long. The slide that's on the screen right now is the main slide where the bulk of the presentation will take place. So the slide covers the most basic question, which is what resources and technologies would people need to have when they live here at Crawford Lake. Technology, of course, we don't mean Xboxes and flat screens, rather the various inventions created to make life easier for the people here. So I have 6 main ideas. And so during the presentation, as a child guesses an answer, we just click on the correct answer that they came up with. And from here, I can show them tools. I can show them actual artifacts that were found on the site that were related to these 6 ideas, or I can show them a video. So we'll have videos of fire by friction. We'll have videos showing how smoky the longhouse gets so that the kids can still see it. And then this can actually lead into a discussion so the kids can actually give their ideas and help along with helping their own learning. And so with the videos, it really all depends on the program. So my program has videos of fire starting, whereas some of the other videos may have experts. The expert may be an ecologist, one of our bird handlers, a squirrel puppet. I believe one of the other one of the people who's participating, Dan, has actually done some video as well. So our in-park programming, we're actually getting a lot of interest still from private schools and homeschooling pods for our traditional in-park programs. So we actually are going to be booking those school groups. We limit our numbers per day so as to keep within our Conservation Authority's health protocols. But as much as we like to innovate, we are still encouraging parks, public to actually come outside and see the parks. So we have staff daily at Crawford Lake and Mountsburg teaching public who visit us. We have a parkvisit.ca, which helps people. They go on, they register, they get to come out for 2 hours. And we actually have seen an increase in the numbers for this year compared to last year for the amount of people that are coming out. And most of them that I've talked to actually have never been to our park before. So it's pretty awesome that we're getting a lot of new people. So this actually helps us kind of encouraged for all of our programs and special events we'll be offering in the future. So thank you guys very much for giving me a chance to talk about the programs we're doing and the work that we're doing at the 2 parks. Thank you.
Thanks, Shauna. That's really neat to see that there's the things like the reservation system are allowing you to adapt to helping people understand and educate them before they actually come to the parks. It's really neat. I've seen other places starting to adopt them too, adopt that same setup. And again, there's a couple questions coming in, so we'll get back to you at the end. Thank you, Shauna. All right, folks, we've got Kristen Ives from Essex Region Conservation Authority. She's going to share with us a little bit about a new PD program to support classroom teachers in embracing nearby green spaces in cross-curricular education experiences. SCRCA is also offering half-day outdoor ed programming for students with in the limits of COVID protocols, and that they'll be led by environmental educators near or at the school so that teachers can see how outdoor ed can be done. So welcome, Kristen. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and thanks everyone for joining us here today. I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me for a quick moment. How's that? Okay, so I am Chris from the Essex Region Conservation Authority. I'm the curator of the John R. Park Homestead, a living history museum and conservation area, as well as the education coordinator for our suite of education programs. We've been working on inviting educators to embrace the outdoors. So I'm not sure how many of you know, but the Windsor-Essex region struggled a bit under COVID, and we had delayed stages of reopening compared to most of the rest of the province. And for that reason, some of the things that we had planned maybe didn't come to fruition as we had imagined, but we've been very successful with lots of our initiatives, and I'm happy to talk about some of those today. So the first thing we did was some program development and promotion. As Karen mentioned, we developed an in-person program for K-8 teachers, encouraging them to embrace the outdoors. The Conservation Authority over the years has done a number of schoolyard greenings and community gardens and other projects. And over the past year, we've actually worked with a lot of schools to get kids outside on nature trails or into conservation areas in those urban areas. Windsor-Essex, as you may know, is highly agricultural, but also highly urbanized. There's two different communities. And we find that a lot of our teachers, when they invite us to the school, are like, but you can't go outside. There's no green space here. So one of the intents of this program was to meet the teachers at their school and to provide a short training program to embrace the space they do have or safe spaces nearby. This program did have a fee, including mileage to get our staff to the site, and that's just related to our board policy for program fees. But as reopening schools happened and the challenge of just getting back to school in the day-to-day became sort of stressful for local teachers and parents, the interest in these programs was high at the beginning, but the delivery of these programs hasn't happened yet. What we did do though, which has been popular even now, is we've developed some specific resources to support this program. So you can see a picture of the supplemental booklet here, which is called Taking Your Class Outside. So we did some sample lessons K-8 that are cross-curricular, and initially this was intended as a post-program material. Again, because there was a fee associated with the program planned, that there would be additional resource materials provided to offset the cost of that fee and be added value going forward for the educators. So this is now available by request, and we're sending this out to any teachers who reach out to us looking for support or ideas on embracing the outside without a formal booking of that program. The program itself has been shifted also in that now we would be available to offer it through distance education, right? Through a webinar or e-portal, or by inviting teachers to our conservation areas. So 2 of our conservation areas have COVID protocols in place that allow us to bring visitors onto the site and have facilities like washrooms and things open. So that does make us able to offer programs within those spaces at this time. The other thing we developed were resources to support all educators. So not just teachers who are in the K-8 window or traditional classroom teachers, but parents who are homeschooling for the first time or long existing homeschooling pods and groups. We were able to develop a section on the SCRCA website, and I'll send those links around with the presentation later as well. And that's under outdoor learning. So here you can see the first tab is environmental education. We also have a second tab for human and natural history. And again, that's related to Indigenous education, and we have a new pilot program there, as well as our historic site, the John R. Park Homestead. So developing content, where did this come from? So as environmental educators, right, we want to reduce, reuse, recycle, but also in all seriousness, we have some limited staff capacity right now. So in developing this section of the website, we took materials that we had created through April, May, and June, just like the other conservation area staff have been talking about in the webinar today, and we've compiled them by theme. So I've just listed, this is just a screenshot from our Monarch page, but we've done all different species highlights. So there's chimney swifts, screech owls, etc. So any materials that our staff were developing, like many of your staff were developing with a basic camera or phone in their backyard or some worksheets to keep families busy, they've been compiled here. So you can see we've got a video with one of our educators, we've got a PDF education worksheet, we've got a video of the actual species itself, so the monarchy closing, and then some links to some reputable resources that we would recommend, Journey North and Monarch Watch. So we've done this for a number of different categories, and these have been really popular and getting a lot of hits on our website. What now? Well, you know, the phones aren't ringing, unfortunately. We've got crickets. So what's happening though is we are starting to see, again, some increased usage on our website. We're getting a lot of calls from scouts and homeschool groups and things like that. What we're looking at now for October, I'm not sure if you know, Holiday Beach Conservation Area is a highlight for raptor migration. So we're looking at offering homeschool and small pod programs there this fall. Like the other CAs have mentioned, we've had really great uptake, great numbers beyond our expectation, and you know, created some new capacity and comfort within our staff for developing non-traditional resources. And that's everything.
Fabulous. Thank you, Chris. You know, that's something at CVC that we're looking at is we've planned a few things to help us pivot for the fall, and we're wondering what's going to happen in off season. It's this continual, you know, 1 or 2 steps forward, 1 step back, seeing how the pandemic unfolds. So it's really great to see that you guys are being kept on your toes, but I'm hoping that those crickets don't last very long.
Yes, and we were saying that outdoor education is 90% opportunity, right? So as opportunity arises, we'll pivot and take note of that. I should mention just quickly, Sam Keller's on the webinar today too as a attendee, but she developed a really cool choose your own adventure using Google Docs. So I'd be happy if anyone's interested in that kind of development. It's got really great engagement and is really unique and creative as well. So thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Well, we'll do afterwards, I'll mention it again towards the end of the webinar, but we'll send out all the panelists' contact information as well as a link to this recording so you are able to connect with everybody afterwards. Okay, we're going to pass it off to Melissa Levi from St. Clair Region Conservation Authority, and she's going to share how her CA delved into the virtual world this past spring with online curriculum connected field trips for students from K to high school. And she's going to discuss the development process, including the management approval, self-promotion, the key teacher-student partnerships and platforms they've been using, apps, and all the editing adventures. So welcome, Melissa.
Thanks, Karen. So we might not get to all of that because I realized 5 minutes isn't a very long period of time, but I want to jump right in. Good afternoon to everybody. I do want to give a shout out when I say we at any point in this presentation, I'm speaking about myself and also my dear co-teacher, Sharon Nethercott, who's the coordinator at St. Clair. So I thought it would be neat to dive in. For some reason, I'm not advancing slides. Okay, I thought it'd be neat to dive in with the goals of our project. So we created virtual field trips last spring, and that's what I was hoping to talk to everybody about today. And the goals were really what motivated us, what got us permissions in the first place, and sort of what kept us focused and moving through all of last spring's chaos. And I've got them listed there. So probably the most important was we really wanted to be of service to everybody, the teachers, the students, and their families who were trying to transition to this online learning environment. And the vision that we had was if we can create a single complete science unit to be able to hand over to the teachers, then it would make everybody's lives a little bit easier. So what we did was we created grade-specific, curriculum-connected virtual field trips that had assessment pieces with them. So the teachers simply shared the link, the students were able to complete them, hand in the assessment, and it was sort of like one thing off the teachers' plates. We also really wanted to maintain our own relevance and prove our capacity to our partners. So we are here with you, we will be here with you through this, and we will hopefully be here at the other end on the other side. And then for our management and also for our board of directors, we really also wanted to show that we could expand our audience, that we could strengthen our partnerships and increase our profile. These virtual field trips that we created we gave away for free. So they were a gift to the teacher and to the community. So we wanted to be able to show to our managers that we were able to maybe gain some long-term goals as opposed to short-term revenue. We were able to accomplish it. In the end, we created virtual field trips for every grade in the elementary level, as well as one secondary. And through some partnerships that were already pre-existing, we were able to get 5 of those trips translated into French as well. So in the end, there were 15 virtual field trips offered to our partners. We went fast and furious. We thought in order to be relevant, in order to be of service, we have to do this quickly. And so the first 5 trips, kindergarten to grade 4, were launched as of April 14th. So it was like a 2-week turnaround. And then we just kept pumping them out as quickly as we could finish them. We considered it a great success. We had at least 10,000 views. It is hard to count people who are using your online materials, but that was sort of our low end. And we were surprised, and I think Nicole mentioned it earlier, people were using these across the province and beyond. So that was fun for us to see. The platform we used, a couple people have mentioned it already here, was Google Slides. And I'm sure most of you are familiar about some of those really important pieces with Google Slides. The main reason why we chose it was because of the ability to publish or stop publishing the virtual field trips. One of our concerns was once we leave these, set these out into the internet world, what's going to happen to them? We were worried that teachers might save them and then use them at a later date in lieu of coming on an actual field trip. We didn't want that loss of business for ourselves or for any of our peers in the province. So we really liked Google Slides for that. And I just want to quickly show everybody in case anybody isn't familiar with it. So I've gone out of my present mode and I just want to show you the option is right here to publish a Google slide. Once it's published, you actually get a link. As opposed to sharing the document itself, you share the link with the teacher. And when they open that link and paste it, cut and paste it, open it, they're going to get a published version. And for anyone that's not familiar, this is really key because from here they can advance through, they can look at the videos, they can participate, but they cannot save this version, they cannot make a copy of this version, they cannot edit this version. And then once you go through and unpublish it, which is what we've now done with our virtual field trips because we're done sharing them for free, is once you've unpublished it, they'll no longer be able to access it with that link. So all it takes is to click stop publishing and that link no longer works for folks. Now, do you want to go back into here? I also want to highly recommend this app right here. If you haven't played around with Screencastify yet, please do so. We had a teacher highly recommend it to us. There is a free version, like most things online, and it allowed us to be able to show our screen and record our voice at the same time. So I created videos. I liked it for using to interpret our watershed maps. So I could zoom in, I could highlight, I could move things around. And while I was explaining what was going on the map, it videoed that whole screen as well as my voice, which I thought was really neat. Added a whole nother layer to the videos. I also would highly recommend, I know a couple folks have mentioned using Google Slides. We were advised to create personalized URL links. We used bit.ly links. That's just what was recommended to us. But one of the two amazing things there. One, you instead of having that really long Google link, you've got this nice little short link, but 2, it allows you to track them. So that's where we get our metrics for being able to share with our management and our board of directors through that link app. So I know it was quick, I know it was short and sweet. Hopefully we got enough information out to everybody. If anybody wants to know more about what we did or some of the technical aspects, Sharon and I are both available. And we are also happy to share those virtual field trips with you guys. So they have been unpublished, but we're happy to share them for the purpose of education with all of you. So thank you, everybody, and I'll turn it back over to Keren.
Thank you, Melissa. Fabulous. We are still doing really well on time, everyone. And if for any reason somebody has to leave before the end of the webinar, again, it will be recorded, and so you can check it out afterwards. Hopefully we'll send it out to you within the next week or so. And don't be shy. If you have any questions, feel free to use a question and answer function on Zoom. Our panelists are trying to answer them after they've had their presentation. So feel free to keep asking those questions, and we'll keep that conversation going after Will's presentation. Thank you, Melissa. So Will from the TRCA, he's helped innovate and produce virtual and online opportunities for the people in their watershed and beyond. And he's going to discuss the live streaming and online learning opportunities TRCA has explored and executed to date. So welcome, Will.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you to all the panelists and people joining us today for wherever you may be in Ontario and greater. So it's super excited to be a part of this panel and share what the TRCA has done already. I'm going to start sharing my screen with you as well. And there's a couple of different things. A lot of things that already been said, TRCA and what other conservation authorities have been doing is something we've partaken maybe in different ways, but we have done very similar things as well. One of the first things that we did when COVID kind of hit, we could say, are kind of the bigger parts. I'm just going to move everybody on my screen over here a bit so I can see you. Perfect. Is we created this kind of branding of at home with nature. And from here is where we started kind of this idea of live streams, and we started testing it out, kind of like what Lake Simcoe did at the beginning and where they are with their videos that they have done, that 6-part series, I believe it is, that they did. We did something similar. We kept it very broad at the beginning, and then we started doing videos that were more specific themselves. And within this at home with nature brand, we had live streams and also these curriculum linked items that we have here. So during the regular year, we do a program called Watershed on Wheels, where we go into classrooms, deliver content, though that's not happening anymore. So similar to what Melissa's saying, we actually created online versions of all of these. We first did it through Google Slides, just like what was being mentioned before, but then we realized, and we've also had some feedback, that not everybody did this. So we actually created edited PDFs that can be edited by students or teachers to whatever they may seem fit as well. So very similar to that. So we changed all of our lessons, and then a teacher would sign up through Checkfront. They would get a link. We'd send them that link and they get the resource that's specific to their grade and content as well. The big thing that we've done at the TRCA, though, is a big part of this is our live streams themselves. So we utilize a program, and we're going into it more, something called Streamlabs. And I'll open that up in a second and I'll speak to that. Is live streaming through Facebook, and it's content specific. Maybe if it's about the fall, maybe it's about spring as well, lots of different things. And we'd actually upload them to here, and they can be directed right to a video along with maybe a worksheet. That's something that we had at the very beginning, where they would actually have a worksheet attached to each of our live streams. The next step for us right now is we're specifically live streaming to Facebook. Is categorizing or cataloging all these on Facebook is pretty messy. It's not a very clean system. So what we're going to be doing next is actually live streaming to Facebook on top of that, where we can live stream Facebook and YouTube, YouTube, simultaneously. And a big reason for that is our reach towards teachers and wherever they may be, or families or other educators as well. YouTube can be a bit easier to reach, as you know, we have our TRCA Facebook there. YouTube can categorize everything depending on content or however we might like to do that. So that's kind of the next step where we're going with things as well, as we want to be able to broadcast to teachers, and we feel like YouTube would be the best version compared to Facebook. So some of the things here, I'm just going to kind of scroll down. You can kind of see the different ones. Also webinars that we have is another big part of it, and we've created handouts along with this. So these are just some of the things that we have here within it. Now, one of the things, especially with challenges for us in where we are now and even getting to it, was a lot of the steps that we had to overcome with maybe internally. We had to make sure we were working with our marketing team. I work with them directly almost once, twice a week now, getting them on board with all of this, making sure that my presentation is in line with the guides that we'd like, and also the content if it's live streaming as well. There was a lot of adversity at first around live streaming and compared to pre-recorded video, but we thought there was a really good benefit in having a live video compared to a pre-recorded. But one nice thing about the program that we're utilizing now called Streamlabs OBS, it allows us to have live videos and also pre-recorded videos within a live. So we can have part of it being live, part of it being pre-recorded, and we can have multiple people in different locations, depending on when they are, all live or pre-recorded. So it's a pretty useful tool that we've used. I'll bring that up at just the very end because it can look a bit technical as well. I always want to bring up a couple different things. We noticed a big part of this as well, pushing our online presence is, this is just within the last 7 days, we noticed a big jump in our actual attendance within people as well. So hang on, I have my little image here. So this is just, minutes viewed when we first started. April 8th was our very first live stream. Of course, there's a downward trend. We attribute that to the actual summer months and people being a bit more, teched out as well, kind of towards the end. But at the beginning of COVID, it was very popular. We had lots of videos. About 2,000 views is about the average we had on each one. And we can see that kind of from, the previous days before April 8th as well. And we're still producing a lot of content. Another challenge with this is actual content fatigue. Us who may be delivering it, we have to think of a new topic each time and make sure that it's, specific enough that we're not, going to have to do it something next week as well, right? Or the week after too. So we involved a lot of different parts of TRCA to produce content depending on where they are as well. And that allowed us to have lots of content and also future content as well. Also, my hope with this new YouTube and live streaming is we can record some numbers from teachers themselves, wherever they may be with their classes, and get them to maybe pick a topic or content specific as well in the coming weeks. So kind of lastly is one of the big things that we found, especially with any video recording, Karen's giving me the cue that I have about 30 seconds to speak really quickly here, is utilizing resources. And one of these things is just stabilizers. So if you're doing videos at all, this is something that I think a lot of people forget. Our phones, right? We think our hands are very steady. Things like stabilizers and tripods, this is one that you can carry around. It will stabilize your phone while recording, right? Is what I use while live streaming. It may be a virtual, we could say hike with this class or a group, which we've done before. And utilizing this just makes your image quality so much better. It's a bit cumbersome to get used to at the beginning, but it's something that's really beneficial. And we may not be spending as much money in other aspects. It's something that definitely you can look into in regards to budgetary ideas as well. And I did mention I'd just quickly show Streamlabs if that's okay. Karen, you can give me the thumbs up if I can show this really super quick. My camera will freeze. I will let you know that because my computer is trying to get a hold of it right now. But you can see Streamlabs here. I can directly stream to Facebook or YouTube from here. If you have any younger people in your family that enjoy video games, this is a program that is used by many streamers on the platform of Twitch or YouTube as well. It's primarily thought of for gaming, but it is free. You can, have videos. This is from Mission Monarch. So I had people in Toronto, and then I was able to sit at my house and basically be a producer for everything as well here. And we have activities, different sheets as well. We've used this for actually screen recording too. So I could record my screen, draw, have my image up here as well, move things around if I wanted to. There's a lot of different things you can do with this as well. But it's pretty cool. I talked to the Toronto Zoo about their live streams as they just had a pole on a stick or a stick on a pole. I don't even know the proper terminology for it, but about utilizing that because they do a live stream every single day. So yeah, that's kind of my quick rundown of what we've been doing and where we're going to going with it.
That's really cool. What's the name of that last software you were using, Will?
Streamlabs OBS, it's what it's called. So Streamlabs OBS. So
okay,
you can record your screen, whatever it may be. It's also, you can stream right to Facebook. There's definitely a bit of things to do if you want to get really into it, especially if you want to have people in different locations. You want to have a phone getting streamed. You want to have a webcam. Right now, you guys are actually, or I'm on a camcorder. I'm using it as a webcam, but there's an extra little piece. It's called a cam link I had to buy, and you can use DSLR cameras. So my hope as well is to use a DSLR camera to actually live stream with. So the quality is way better than this, and I could potentially even get 4K, which is great.
Gold, yeah. Awesome, thank you, Will. I'm going to invite all the panelists to pop their video and mics back on. We have a couple of questions that have come in, and I've got a couple of questions for the panelists. Folks who are participants, if you have any questions that come up through this conversation, we're about 10 minutes away from wrapping up here. So ask away. Thank you, everyone. Again, Will, Nicole, Chris, Shauna, Melissa, and thanks, Nikisha, for your behind-the-scenes work. A couple questions are still outstanding from the Q&A chat. So Krista's asking, are CAs charging fees for virtual field trips, live feed trips? That was hard to say. For online content. Does anybody want to take the mic and answer that one?
I can share what we're doing at St. Clair right now. We are proposing that, so we're waiting for board approval. But that is our goal, is to try and start recouping some fees. We've tried to make them affordable, especially for the online content. So it might be a package that a principal could purchase for the whole school, or it might be a reasonable fee that a teacher could potentially even choose to get every kid to bring in a couple bucks. So we're trying to keep it reasonable, but we want to be bringing in some revenue as well.
Thanks, Melissa. Does anybody else want to add to what Melissa was just saying?
Yeah, I can say from from TRCA, for the trips that we've run, as of right now, a lot of our funding is still strong within Peel, so we have not charged for it in the region of Peel, but it is something we did consider depending on if funding does change, and is something that we would re-look at if that comes, which I expected to, but yes.
Okay.
So the program we're doing, the virtual program, is $75 for could be the class, could be multiple classes. Our bubble program is also $75. That's for an hour program, plus in-park gate fees.
Okay, thanks, Shauna.
Yep.
Chris or Nicole, do you want to add? Are you okay?
Yeah, nothing for me. We haven't charged for anything that we've done in that respect.
And as I presented, we had a fee related to our traditional fee schedule, but now that those programs are planned to be going virtual, that will change, I'm sure. And again, our traditional homeschool programming fees would still apply. When we do those coordinated program fees, then we waive our gate fee. So that's the only difference I would see there.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Karen, I'm going to jump back in. Sorry, I read the question to be virtual field trips and live feeds. We obviously charge for our teacher PD courses. So each 4-week session was $89. Teacher resource kits were $35, and the do-it-yourself stuff was $25.
Okay, that makes me happy from a program admin side of things to hear that we are able to continue to generate revenue. I like to share things, especially amongst ourselves, for free, because we're doing similar work in different geographies. So it makes me think that we're not really stepping on each other's toes or taking audiences from one place to another, or, you know, stealing audiences in that way. So that's really cool to hear that, and I can bring that back to my my colleagues at CVC. I'm going to move on to another question here. Bonnie's asking about in-person opportunities. She's saying that because she's a staff member at a board, that there's an issue in the board with no parents. If there are no parents allowed on site during a field trip, and they need to have a 1:12 ratio, how do we address that? Is anybody considering that right now, or is that just so far in the future, we just haven't crossed that bridge yet? How's that popping up for you guys in your neck of the woods?
So I'll speak to that a little bit. Normally our ratio, especially offsite, is 1:5. And of course, that's not something we can meet right now. As I said, our boards are sort of frozen up with just getting back to school, just getting in the day-to-day. So we haven't had those detailed conversations yet. But as a staff, we are talking about, you know, what ratio do we need for our potential bubble programs or these small homeschool experiences where, you know, one group can come from the same family. You know, how isolated do those become, and how many staff do we need? We know that schools have protocol. You know, if a student develops symptoms or starts to become unwell, you know, how do you deal with that from a health and safety perspective of staffing? And those are all things we're considering for our fall programs at Holiday Beach Conservation Area. So I'm excited to hear that too, how everyone's dealing with that and what that will look like for all of us going forward.
Thanks, Chris. Is there anybody else that wants to answer that? Okay, I'm looking at the sparkle in your eye to make sure I'm not gonna jump ahead too fast. Will, go ahead.
Yeah, so we've run actually 2 in-person events with high school students. We haven't done anything with grade school students yet, and this is just for community service hours, a part of our Conservation Youth Corps program around it. The procedures around it were very diligent. Our next one in person is actually on October 4th, so coming up as well. In regards to ratio for us right now, we are only allowed to run events at TRCA properties. That's what we have set in for TRCA in regards to our protocols. Along that is a 1-to-10 ratio, or 1-to-8 ratio, I should say, per staff member as well. And then how it would work is parents would drop off their kids. They don't even get out of the car, right? They drop off their kids, they have masks. We go through a COVID protocol, etc. They do a form that morning or the day before as well, right? We do check and screening with them that day of, and we like have all the hand sanitizer. We wipe down all the tools. We have a used area, we have an unused area for the tools that they use. If they come in a social group, of course that differs, right? Because they came in the same car, right? Like enforcing the 6 feet, right, rule around that is maybe a bit too stringent for something. So there are some things that are taken under consideration, and that's a part of our meetings coming up as well. But in regards to schools, going to schools, that's something we haven't thought about in regards to like 30 students or 24 students, right? Just we haven't gotten to that part yet. We've just been thinking more, okay, how can I bring it to them virtually? That's where we're at right now, especially with grade school.
Right. Yeah, it's a tricky thing because it's following local health procedures as well as provincial. And then if, a parent of a student is attending a field trip in the past, in these COVID times, they technically part of that classroom's bubble, but there's all the science that is coming out to say, who has more chance of contracting COVID and where the rates are. And I'm not in that world of that type of science, so I can't speak to it from an educated standpoint. But it does that Bonnie's question there is a very tricky one to address. Nicole, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, challenges with ratios aside, Lake Simcoe is jumping into some in-person program delivery. I've got staff going out tomorrow, actually. So the rule that we've set is no going inside anything. So we've got one staff is going to a Montessori school and doing some program delivery in the yard with all of our COVID protocol in place, obviously with sanitizing equipment, minimizing equipment to begin with. Second staff is going to a local park, and a high school class is walking over to meet them, and they're leading a community walk through that local park. But I mean, we're very fortunate in our watershed jurisdiction to be working with a forward-thinking school board. So we're gearing up for contactless schoolyard visits by about the middle of next month, where, yeah, absolutely, it'll be very much sort of like what we're used to and seeing the number of kids. It's just seeing them outside and reimagining how we're going to be delivering those programs. So
I'm getting the 4-minute warning from Nikisha. Yeah, that's a good point. If it's in the schoolyard or in the community, if teachers still have those permissions to walk their students and not have to worry about the smaller ratios on a field trip offsite, and we can flex to what they need, that's one way of addressing it, and still continuing to do the engagement and active pieces with the students. Thanks, Nicole.
no problem.
All right, I wish we had a voting system on which question to take on next. I've got about 12 of them here left for you panelists. So I am going to choose, another question from Bonnie. This one is dealing with Facebook security. Will, do you have any issues on that end of things? Have you had to consider security when you're doing Facebook Live issues? I'm guessing she means more security from the net, not from person to person and COVID stuff, but
yeah, definitely. I think that's something that is actively watched over and was discussed too. I'll first address us as staff. You have to, so for us, because the page is like a business page, I would have to link my personal Facebook account, which a lot of people were apprehensive about, some staff, right? Linking their own personal to their own workplaces, right? Some people like keeping that separate account, right? And then every day I get messages from people messaging TRCA, no matter how nice they are or how frustrated they are with Conservation Authority, right? But that is not my job to look over. And people will be monitoring, and they monitor the chat all the time in case there's something that needs to be deleted during the live sessions. So a big thing, especially because we want to focus this around teachers a lot too, is why we want to go towards YouTube. Because I do not, especially personally, if I was a teacher in a classroom, I would not be wanting to log onto my Facebook account with my children behind me or virtually, right? And share the screen and then go from there. Whereas YouTube is a lot less, you know, we could say like my personal information right there and accessible by others in the chat too. So that's kind of like the steps that we're thinking about as well within teachers and the live streaming portions around that.
Okay,
but
great.
we want to be able to do cross-platform between Facebook and YouTube to retain the people that we have already attracted from Facebook or the families.
Yeah, you're trying to transition to a new platform without losing the folks that have already connected with you guys through Facebook. I get that. Yeah, it's again, I think I might have said this earlier in the webinar, it's like a 1 or 2 steps forward and then 1 step back, because we're learning as we go through this unprecedented times. Wow, you guys have inspired so many people. If you've, as the panelists, have you been watching the chat, some really nice feedback is coming in. For those of you who are the participants in here, thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be sending a survey out. Let me share my screen with you, lovelies, if I can remember how to do this. Share screen. Yes, so we hopefully will send a email in the next little bit with some more information. So if you want to connect with any of the panelists, if you want to re-watch the webinar that we did today, feel free to share it with other colleagues that you might not have had online with you today. So here we go. Just a couple of next steps before we sign off. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and for the panelists for taking time to prepare and share the stories of pivoting. It's a new buzzword this year, for pivoting your programming during a pandemic and some of the lessons that you're already learning. I also want to thank and acknowledge all the people who have worked behind the scenes to plan this first webinar. Melissa, Levi, Dan Schneider, Nina Sampson, Stana Luxford Odie, Sherry Owen, Bonnie Anderson, William Sorley, Nikisha Mohammed, Chris Ives, Emily Febre, Krista Fazakerly, Samantha Keller, and Brenna Bartley. We got a sneak peek of Brenna with her mask on behind Shauna earlier. A couple of other things. You might have heard of the WIN Awards before, or the Watershed Interpreters Network Awards. We are going to be opening nominations hopefully on Friday, and you'll get an email about that as well. If you have someone in your life, your work life, who is amazing, please nominate them. We've got 2 awards, just like in the last couple of years. One is the Outstanding Achievement Award, and the other one is an Innovation Award. More details about each of those awards will be sent to you in the coming days. And the applications or the nominations for those awards are due November 2nd, and hopefully we will be announcing those winners during the Rekindle week in November. I'm going to skip to number 3. So please give us some feedback. It's my first time moderating a webinar, maybe even anything. So I want to get some personal feedback so I can be better next time. And if there's any technological kinks or weirdness that happened on your end, please take time to fill in that survey when you get it so that we know how to make it better. Because we are going to have a second webinar coming up in October on the 22nd, the 21st of October, same time, 2:30 to 3:30. And the topic is including the next generation in climate change decision making. So let's see if I can stop the share so I can see folks again and see our chat. Is there anything that I've missed? Because we're at time now. We're not going to get cut off, but just want to make sure I haven't missed anything from my fellow panelists or in the chat here. I think we got it all. You all are amazing. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and have a great rest of your week. Signing off on behalf of everybody from our team,